servants to our high priest, Lord Caiaphas. To be appointed to personally serve Lord Caiaphas is a great honor. And the pay is good as well. In fact, this is my pay from this last week. Though it was a week I won't soon forget. You see, there was this man, a man that we arrested, then tried and sentenced to death for blasphemy. His name was Jesus of Nazareth, a man that Caiaphas has hated and wanted to stop for quite some time. The opportunity, though, finally came when one of Jesus' disciples came to us offering to betray him. I stood off to the side and watched as this lowlife made his deal. I can give you Jesus, he says, but it's going to cost you dearly. What a greedy little worm. Then he takes 30 pieces of silver and here's my few farthings. It would take me months to earn that kind of money. It's not too long, though, before this Judas comes back, this time really agitated. We have to go now, he says. Just watch for my signal and arrest the one I greet with a kiss. What a snake. Either way, I gather up the men, and we make our way toward Gethsemane Garden. A whole mob of us with clubs, swords, and torches, and I was right up front, ready for a fight. Sure enough, this Judas greets Jesus with a kiss. So we step forward to grab him. And as we do, suddenly, one of Jesus' disciples grabs a sword and takes a swing at me, cutting off my ear. I got up from my sword, but instead I staggered to one knee on the ground in pain. Then, Jesus spoke with the most incredible authority. Enough! Put up the sword. And Jesus came to me, took my ear off the ground, touched the side of my head, and then whispered a prayer. When he was finished, I reached for the side of my head again, and my ear had been completely restored. I couldn't believe it, but I looked at him so confused, because that was the man I was supposed to hate. But I just wanted to fall at his feet and thank him. Seeming to understand my thoughts, though, Jesus looked back at me and whispered, "You're welcome." Then we arrested him, hauled him back to Caiaphas, and put him on trial before the high council. I stood by and watched as the accusations flew at him. He was strong, unyielding, didn't even speak a word to defend himself. Finally, though, Caiaphas, furious at this point, shouts, "Are you the Messiah? Are you the Son of God?" Then with that same authority that Jesus spoke with in the garden, he said, "I am he." Caiaphas then jumped on his statement, stirring the rest of the council into a frenzy, shouting, "Guilty! Blasphemy! He must die!" I couldn't take my eyes off of Jesus at that point. Inside, I was screaming, "What are we doing? What if he's innocent? What if he really is the Messiah?" 10 farthings. My week's pay. But what's the difference in this and the money that Judas got? It's filthy. What makes me less guilty than him? It's money I received to help shed innocent blood. Lord, forgive me. Help me to see who Jesus truly is.
But he was pierced because of our sins. He was beaten because of the evil we did. The punishment that brought us peace was on him, and by his wounds we are healed.
Early in the morning, they bound Jesus, led him away, and handed him over to Pilate, the governor.
And Pilate
Passover celebration. I was taking my two sons to the temple because I wanted to teach them about the Lamb and the meaning of its sacrifice. Our long journey was filled with questions from two excited little boys. But the question of concern that kept coming up throughout the journey was, why, Daddy? Why does the lamb have to die? We don't understand, Daddy. As we entered into Jerusalem, we found ourselves in the midst of an angry mob. I tried to hold my sons close to me when I realized that condemned criminals were passing by. And that's when I saw the third man. He was horribly bloodied and disfigured from the beatings and abuse that he had received. In his weakened state, he faltered and fell beneath the weight of his cross. Suddenly, the lead Roman soldier pointed at me and shouted, "You there! Carry the cross!" I stepped back and thought, "No, my sons, I can't! Carry it now!" he shouted. As two other soldiers grabbed me from the crowd and threw me at the feet of this man. When I looked up, I was face to face with him. With surprising clarity and gratefulness, with labored breathing, he said, "Thank you." As I looked back into his eyes, I realized this wasn't a criminal. This was a good man. I began to wonder, why was he condemned to die? Suddenly the words of my sons came rushing back into my mind. Why, Daddy? Why does the lamb have to die? We don't understand. The journey up the hill was slow, difficult. The cross was bulky and heavy to carry. As we made it to the top of the hill, the soldiers took the cross from me and shoved me out of the way. I couldn't believe it. I just stood there and watched as they nailed him to the cross and then raised the cross in the air. I finally realized who he was when they placed the sign above his head. It was Jesus, the miracle-working prophet from Galilee. As I stood there, I felt small hands take hold of mine on both sides of me. When I realized it was my sons, I wanted to take them away from this horrible sight, but I couldn't move. One of my sons looked up at me and asked, "Is that the lamb, Daddy?" Surprised by his question, I said, "Yes, son, I think it is." My other son looked up at me and said, "Why, Daddy? Why does the lamb have to die? We don't understand." I don't know why it was me they pulled from that crowd that day. Somehow,